I am Slick Nick. I am the living legend. And I am the rebooted version of myself. And when I receive a relevant comment from a video, one that allows me to talk about something new, not one of the 2,600 videos I had to make before my reboot, then I want to share with it. I'm excited to talk about new things ultimately. The video was called Being an Attractive Male. If you're not tall, you're short. Our friend Eric5335 had this to say, quote, "Our cognition works through categorization by putting things and people into groups based on the concept of meta contrast and comparative fit in the same categorization theory developed by Turner. This means tallness only exists in comparison to shortness. Our minds then in turn exaggerate the differences and similarities at the fuzzy borders of these categories. That means a person who's 5'8" might seem as short depending on the context of comparing them to someone else ultimately, and so on." Closing up that comment says, "This phenomenon kind of ignores that there is such a thing as average because average does not give much emotional value as tall and short categories." End quote. And I like that. I like that comment a lot. And I think it is so relevant to what I talk about on this channel. What I have learned from hosting this channel, 4 years now, where I'm ultimately serving as a mentor for younger guys who haven't figured out their identity yet. What I have learned is that when there is lack of identity, what happens is one fills that void with perceptions of what will make the identity better. Ultimately, when you are in your late teenage years, your early 20s, we still carry on that high school mentality of looking at ourselves through the lens of what's valuable when you are a young man without a true identity, without a concept of knowing what am I actually good at and what am I bad at, and am I comfortable and confident admitting that I'm not good at a lot of things. I'm actually bad at a lot of things, but here's the things I'm good at, and I'm going to find a way to make money off of that, because ultimately so much of my male identity is based on being financially independent and successful. But when you don't have that because you're 20 years old, which I was at one time, and I thought, well, here's lots of things I'm good at, but how am I going to make a living out of this? Flash forward, to age 38, and I've got this thing figured out. I not only have a great career that pays amazing money, but I also have these side gigs that I like to have fun with and make money on the side too, like this channel. But I think what happens is when you're 20 years old, or however, a lot of the guys that are watching my channel, what happens is they're comparing themselves to other people in very superficial ways. And they often, erroneously, consider their looks to be the thing that's going to matter so much, when it's not. And ultimately, I guess what I should say, the whole point of this video, is to say this. How have my looks helped me get to where I am today? And I would actually say they haven't. I'd actually say my looks have nothing to do with my success in life, in business, even in marriage. And I know I have an amazingly beautiful wife. I get that. But she didn't marry me because of my looks. And if you've been watching me for years, you know this story. And that is that whereas I saw her from across a crowded room and immediately thought, I'm going to go talk to that girl, I immediately saw her as beautiful. It was months before she would even think of me in that sort of way, as far as, hey, this guy is handsome. It wasn't until I asked her out on our first date for Valentine's Day that the switch went off, and she thought, oh yeah, I'm attracted to this guy physically. Because what I did is I ultimately charmed her with my communication, by being interested, by engaging her. It never had anything to do with my looks. And I think that's an advantage that guys have, is that we get away with being attractive without the physical aspect actually even matter. Because I always love to quote this, Marilyn Monroe. She's She's known as having this famous quote, if you can make a girl laugh, you can make her do anything. Now you can take that however you want it, but ultimately I believe it's so true that guys get away with something. We don't actually have to be that good looking. We just sort of have to be pretty well put together and presentable. But as long as we can talk the game, we can often, and you know, I've already said it before, I am Mr. Fake It Till You Make It. You know, in all this talk, I love it when people get all caught up in alpha male versus beta male, as if that was really a thing that matters. Because ultimately, it's less about physically how you look and more about in here, if you're in charge in here of your own life, if you control your own emotions and you're good at talking to people and making them feel good about themselves, they find you attractive. Forget about physical or not. We have to consider that it is a waste of time and energy to compare ourselves by these standards of, well, in the same way we can compare to height. Well, I'm taller than him, but I'm shorter than him. Well, don't judge yourselves by those standards, especially when it comes to your looks. Think, how good am I at carrying on a conversation? How good am I about making other people feel good about themselves? Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, Nick's right. His looks had nothing to do with it. He is married to a beautiful woman, but and my wife has consistently confirmed this story many times. I've had her, I think, on this channel telling the story that her being attracted to me had nothing to do with my looks. And in fact, can you imagine? See, you're thinking like a male. Think like a female. The way they're attracted to men is different than how we're attracted to women. Men are shallow. We look at the physical. We see that first. Women don't necessarily see that first. In fact, my wife saw that last. And I think that's very interesting. I think that's hard to grasp when you're a younger male. But when you're an older male who's been married to a woman for over a decade, you get to understand a better concept of what is the most attractive traits of a man. And it's not his outward appearance. And even if it is in high school, it quickly changes by the time you start into adulthood as a male. That's why you need a guy like me in your life. I'm telling you how it actually is in the future. Instead of looking at your life right now, what's going on right now, and what matters right now, what's going to matter next year and for the rest of your life. I'm looking at that long term. But again, a common mistake is for a young man without an identity to think, my looks matter, and if I don't look good enough, people won't find me attractive. I'm Nick Shell inviting you. Okay, I've got the key. There you go. Take the key and let yourself out of that prison cell. You can go ahead and come out now and understand looks don't matter. Being confident, or at least acting confident, even when you're not, because I'm Mr. Fake It Till You Make It. I built this channel out of nothing, out of a topic I never cared about to begin with, and look where it is now. I've done the same thing with my career. That's the secret. But the tragedy is, so many young men cannot accept that as truth because they're still comparing themselves by all these standards that don't even matter. Your thoughts belong right here in the comment section.